So this is one of those videos where you are going to watch most of it and think to yourself, Simon Miller is actually arguing with himself. But when you do make this many videos, sometimes that's just going to happen. Because when I enter my brain, I always shrug my shoulders and go like, yeah, you're a wrestling promoter, you want to promote, so you should say whatever you can say in order to get people to tune in. But on the other side, there are certain folk in the wrestling community who are like, man, I don't like it when wrestling companies do such a thing. So that's what we're going to talk about. Because hello, my name is Simon What Culture. Thank you for tuning in as always. Please hit that subscribe button. And this is the 10 most desperate ways AEW got you to watch. Number 10, the best match ever. Now we all remember a couple of years ago when that pandemic rolled into town, meaning that we weren't allowed to do anything, and in terms of sports entertainment, people weren't even allowed to go and watch the matches, which makes you stare off into the distance and ask yourself, what's the point of having wrestling without a crowd? And we have talked about that and talked about it, so we're not going to talk about it again. But during all of this, obviously both WWE and AEW kept on chugging away. And on one episode of Dynamite, we had Jon Moxley versus Jake Hager. So Tony Khan went on his Twitter and he wrote, I believe this is the best empty arena match ever. You're going to have to tune in to see. Now, I'm sure in one part of his brain, he was thinking, oh no, the world is crumbling around me. I've only just started a wrestling promotion. What the hell am I going to do? But as I've already said, he probably sat there with positivity running through his veins and enthusiasm in his lungs and was like, well, they really did kick the crap out of each other. Why don't I go and send it out there into the social media sphere? And apparently when you did watch it, it was a bit like, well, yeah, that was okay. I mean, it was pretty decent. Probably would have been better with an audience. But once again, I don't want to walk down that road. And yes, Jon Moxley has had far better matches ever since then. But wrestling exists in a bubble anyway. I don't see the problem. Number 9, the secret mystery signing. So now we are getting into silly territory because we've already had this debate. I gave my opinion, you gave your opinion, then we hugged and kissed and made up, and it was all quite lovely. But just before Revolution 2021, Paul White did make his way to the ring, and he was all like, hi, on Sunday, Saturday, whatever that pay-per-view was, we are going to announce a brand new signing here in AEW, and it is going to be the greatest damn thing you've ever seen in your damn life. And yes, look, it did turn out to be Christian Cage, and this is when we just fell into an ironic black hole, because the same people who had been going, oh man, Christian doesn't get any respect in WWE, were then going, Christian Cage, I expected somebody far better, how dare you insult me? But once again, if you sign someone and you pay them millions of dollars, what do you expect that individual to say? Well, you know, I mean, someone's coming in and he's all right. I mean, I don't care, so maybe you shouldn't care. No, you should get your excitement cannon and you should pull the trigger. That is not a good thing to say. And the other point of all of this is that you're allowed to be happy with it and you're allowed to be disappointed. You're a human being too, and if you did feel like you got taken for a ruse, the best thing you can do is turn off and never watch again. Number 8, Dustin Rhodes puts his career on the line. We once again go back to that time when we were all in lockdown and when AEW came up with a really good idea, because they were like, well, how can we build a television show around a championship and around our guys when we don't have our entire roster? Well, we've got the TNT title. Let's do a little bit of a tournament. This was so damn good too, because Cody Rhodes and Lance Archer both got to the final in very different ways. And before the thing kicked off, Dustin Rhodes went to find his brother. It's all like, look man, I know I am getting to the end of my career, which means if I cannot get at least to the second round of this thing, I am going to retire. Now I thought that was a nice little caveat, I thought that was a nice little extra spice in my sauce, but once again I understand where people are coming from, because did anybody think that Dustin was actually going to lose and retire, especially when there was nobody in the building? The answer was no. But seriously, if you're going to get mad about this stuff, wrestling is not for you. Number 7, Bryan Danielson plays Bullseye. So I do find it a little bit difficult to point the finger of criticism at a wrestling company when they're dealing with injuries, because nobody sits down and plans out their calendar year and goes, oh yeah, and then in May, we should have some kind of crisis where all our guys and girls are hurt. I think that will make for great TV. It's just one of those things that you do have to deal with, and right before the Forbidden Door pay-per-view, I mean, can you believe it, it did turn out that Bryan Danielson seemingly had suffered some kind of a concussion, and he wasn't going to be able to work the pay-per-view. And yes, what AEW and everybody else should always do is just put a tweet or something out on social media that says, look, we're very sorry to announce that the American Dragon has suffered an injury and he's not going to be able to compete. But instead, Brian came out on TV, basically insinuated what we could have had, and then was like, sorry, you're not going to get it, but I promise you I'll get something else. Now, the end result of that was Cesaro, or Claudio Castagnoli, debuting at that event, which was absolutely awesome. But I suppose some people probably thought this was a bait and switch, because they were like, well, why would Danielson be on Dynamite if actually he was going to be there? This is when you have to learn from the things you're being told. 9 times out of 10, it is accurate. Number 6, a lot of gimmick matches. So this one I think we can all get behind just a little bit, because if you do go through the history of AEW, yep, they've had a lot of gimmick matches. I mean, they have done a ton of lights out matches, they have done a ton of steel cage matches, we've had blood and guts, we've had exploding bombs that didn't actually work and made everybody go crazy. Because I suppose sometimes you are looking at the numbers and you think to yourself, well, we have done a lot of exhibitions, maybe we should try and kill someone. And you do fall into the law of diminishing returns with all of this, especially when it comes to blood. This is a debate we've had time and time again. If I see somebody bleed like 6 times a year, I'm like, oh my gosh, this has now got super duper serious. But if somebody is doing it every single day, John Moxley, after a while you're like, well, of course the red stuff's going to come out of his head. Why wouldn't it? Really though, you do have to go into the numbers and the ratings to see if this is worthwhile. Because if you can do gimmick match, 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 blah, blah, I think that was 12. I was trying to get one every single month of the year. And every time you do get a boost when it comes to the numbers, well then why the hell would you want to go and do anything else? But I can say from a specific fan's point of view, it is better when these things are few and far between. I mean, take the Royal Rumble over there in WWE. The whole reason it's so special is because it only comes once a year. If we started doing it 4 times, I would cry into my cereal. Number 5, the interference distraction finish. I don't mean to bring WWE up when we are talking about AEW, but until recently, or when Triple H took over, I think it would have been fair to have said, honestly, World Wrestling Entertainment does too many screwy finishes, because it literally started to be every single match. There certainly is a trope when it comes to professional wrestling and sports entertainment, but this kind of ties in to what we were just chatting about. If you just do them few and far between and make them tie into your story, well, it's a device that you should be using. The problem here, though, is that at Revolution 2022, when it was Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa, we had already had a tremendous amount of this in the build-up, and then we got to the night itself. A little bit like Vince McMahon was booking it. Because Jamie Hayter was doing stuff and Rebel was doing stuff and there was weapons and there was, hey, referee, look over here. And the really odd bit is the match went about 17 minutes, but it was done to just set up another match. Sometimes you just gotta draw a line under it. I'd also have to go back and see what other nonsense happened around this, because again, if you had chosen this as your nonsense match, I do think it's fine. But even I can recall, when it came to everything with Britt Baker's stable, they did interfere just a little bit too much. Number 4, we have a huge announcement. So I'm going to be nice and quick with this one, because some people think that Tony Khan says I have a huge announcement too much. Every time he has talked about it, I mean, I've considered it a huge announcement. Maybe you don't think it's a huge announcement. There's not much I can do about that. I suppose what this comes down to, given that we've already talked about the Christian Cage thing, is that I have a huge announcement now basically means I have signed somebody else, I mean Keith Lee came in, to a similar affair, and I suppose the only one outside of this was the Ring of Honor signing, and admittedly the wider wrestling audience didn't really think that was a massive deal. But I really do not understand what people expect Tony Khan to say. You have to be excited about what you're doing, because if you don't care, why should I? Which does tie into number 3, another huge announcement. I accidentally went a little bit too quick there, because this is where we were meant to talk about the Ring of Honor thing. Sometimes I do get carried away, I'm very sorry. And I'm happy to put my hands up and say that yes, when Tony Khan did come down to the ring and say, hi, I purchased Ring of Honor, I was like, well, that's cool because, you know, it's got wrestling legacy and I would like it to be protected. But do I really have time to watch another wrestling show? No, not really. I also think that it wasn't the best idea to merge all the Ring of Honor and AEW stuff together, but that's just my personal opinion. But I suppose what we need now, once again, it comes back to the whole law of diminishing returns. The next time you do have something big to announce, maybe just wait till 2023. You do it in January 2023, the internet will light up again, and as long as it's something that appeases everyone, you'll be fine. But therein lies the problem. This is the wrestling community. You could reach to the camera, grab Jack, the wrestling fan, and say, Jack, I'm going to make you the AEW World Champion. And Jack would go, well, I've never even taken a bump. We're all screwed. Number 2, a bunch of wacky names. Now, I want to make it very clear that Chris Jericho right now is probably doing some of the best work of his career. And if you didn't consider him one of the greatest of all time before everything he's done in AEW, well, I don't even think there's an argument now. Jericho arrives in GOAT status. This one also goes back to that damn pandemic once again, but you will remember that the Inner Circle, which was Chris Jericho's group at the time, took such a big weight of this off their back because they were like, okay, we've got a bunch of guys together here, we can go out there and do a bunch of stupid stuff, so that's what we should do, just to keep the TV show rolling. What that did turn into, though, was a bunch of skits that had certain names that would be promoted out before the show. So there was the Town Hall, there was the Parlay, there was the Ultimatum, there was the team meeting, and I thought all of these were entertaining because once again Jericho was refinding himself through all of this. But I suppose if you do want to make the debate that they were all kind of the same and done to try and kind of make you think that Dynamite was going to be more than it was, I suppose I agree with you. But once again, the world didn't work. You have to do something. Number 1, the Jokers. As most of you know, when AEW has a casino ladder match or a casino something, the last entrant is usually pitched as the Joker or a mystery person. Now this was always going to go downhill very fast because expectations in wrestling are absolutely crazy. So unless, I know, Triple H walked out, you're like, oh my gosh, Triple H has changed size, there's always one person that's a little bit disappointed. So I suppose the desperation part here is how it turns into long-term booking, because we are going to get to 2026 eventually. I know it sounds crazy. And if AEW is still doing this, who on earth are they going to get? They're going to have to call The Rock, and I don't think he's going to do it. The good part is that up till now, I do think we've had some interesting characters in this role. I mean, we had Brian Cage, we had Maki Ito, we had Johnny Nitro, or Johnny Impact, or Johnny Dynamite, or whatever he was called. But you do have to tread carefully with this, because it basically ties into the entire list. As soon as you put an idea in a wrestling fan's brain, they are going to go to the tippy top, which they should do. You just got to make sure that 9 times out of 10, you can live up to this magic. Excuse me, daddy magic. Now please do leave a comment below and let me know what you think about all of this. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Head to whatculture.com where you can read articles like this with your eyes. Come follow us on social media at Simon316 or What Culture WWE. Make sure you breathe, otherwise you will die. Then go and watch more videos. They want to be seen. My name is Simon for What Culture. Thank you very much for joining me as always. Have a great day. See you soon.